Forces millions into cyclical poverty. William 33. Wage stagnation made it difficult to people with rising costs, 80% of need to increase long-term restless. Inflation adjusted wage growth is 20.2% a year per year. 3/4 of middle-income Americans said earnings are not huge to rent and healthcare, hampering the chance of cycle breaking the past cycle poverty. Wage stagnation is reverting to pre-pandemic levels. Stimulus growth is unsustainable. Christian 24. Lack of wage and threats of encouraged 40% lower labor decrease over income extremely filling roles to employees as less of a negotiate paying current place to see wage feel like a pay house hospitality. Every fall falling fourfold most killing the US because how economy rebounds most wage growth rapidly so very pre-pandemic levels of the economy heading towards recession suddenly expanding and having hit the brakes. Stagnant wages hollow out economic resilience, shocks are inevitable, but only worker stability enables recovery. Bond 21. Stagnant wages all uncovered concentration hold back the entire economy, critical to show the economy more resilient. Increasing inequality growing since the 80s, labor share income, positive impact GDP income, economic shock, real side inequality leads to fragile economy, and flying recession, lower income workers, and more workers are the economy. Economic crises are inevitable. Complex systems guarantees impossible to predict and prevent the next crisis. Resilience prevents them from cascading. Is only 22. The world will cover the crisis disaster occur regularly covered years ago. 9/11, internet, pension dollars, inflation, necessary economic resources, implement competition, brand, source legacy, institutions struggling, economic system become predictable, political continue, prepare for shifts in stability, there are fiscal policy, external dynamic, government force, global economic impasse, globalization, framing, resilience, systems to not avoid risk, employment, to avoid pandemic points, the lead extinction. The next crisis is existential, absence of resilience, stability depends on our robust middle class. Provide 21. Risks and wants as a cascade across the financial crisis scales, highly probable their 20s, while all human activity, home inequality, the depression, stability, the stability of society depends on Russell class effort, anticipation, more anarchy, distributable, reliance, rising national, autarky, events, economic stretches, most of the base, the environment, justice, sabotage, based very society, to result of cold blood, body, hijack, right? Now, since the Council World War II was the depression, you said yes, and confrontation, or Taiwan, yes, or you want him, closure, who moves, and nuclear NATO, and Russia. Income inequality decimates trade, Climb 20. Rising inequality, the US the largest victim absorbing financial crisis, all you scandals, some statistics about the CBP, terrorists in China coming after the European, many just war today, the US, the base also, according to the global government, America's rising system, old rate, and employment by various class wars, and influence bankers, employed by officials who sacrifice domestic energy, globalization, and inequality, force each other, lower wages, unsustainable, depressing wages, lead lower consumption, touring debt, competitors, push wages down, alternatives, while 18 class war negotiations, address amount of deep withdrawal from trade, close to the world's largest consumer and capital market class, world global trade, and stable contentions, but anarchy, violence, reducing inequality, will lead to higher consumption and investment. World War III collapses, containment, nuclear and tech risks, and environmental destruction, Oppenheimer 21. Environment health tech failures to define the future by debating over reduced water, changing health reduce institutions and norms, reduce capacity to prevent warming, tech change, and dukes to prolife. As they treat these details, escalating risk for local fragility, damaging fuels, national trade wars, later world with economic consumer regression and regretting by reducing interdependence that made that conceivable in the moment scarier than 1914, where the mental health is security as time where we can least try. Income disparities across diversion wars, law 21. 2. Inequality such with MIT initiation decisions, communities force to shift attention from economic grievances to reinforce assets, but the wars on the diversion force, we need to look beyond the short-term events, short-term socio-economic conditions. The plan solves inequality by instantly lifting 1 million out of poverty, potential essential workers, increasing revenue and spending while producing no job loss. 21. Increasing federal minimum benefit 27 million at work, essential jobs ahead of the income and bargaining power has large price of reducing spending, public assistance with nearly 1 million out of poverty, job loss inflation, median across 0, you see one cases 20 the effective regions, median reversing income inequality, basic paper care workers, high wage costs, translated to high Medicaid bill found the most underpaid due to discrimination. Inequality has a lead capture which is institutional capacity to respond to every existential threat. Stream 24. High inequality was institutional capacity. Inequality is also private public health, public access to requires skill to consistent inequality, leads a lead capture inequality to social capital and trust. Directive suggests with higher social capital, better outcomes that the condition will increase experts, accompany confident artists, news rights and injury virus, misalignment, purposeful accident, and real polarization includes and defining accommodating inequality, better polarization, poverty, driver, exercise, society working against inequality, force postal no country, winning equality, reinforce competition, promoting party competition. The living wage revitalizes trust, which versus elite capture, 421. Trust and historic low contributes to municipal attack health. It's worse than 72% of Republicans that question the election government to lead their voice to the solutions providing public trust. The ambitious policies that translate impact Americans will pleasant policy critical as the living wage accused of with inflation, psychological impact of wage gain would outweigh wage subsidies and effect people gaining their own worth. Well as a caring federal government has to face second waste with the 1% skyrocket. Studies prove income inequality has created a distrustful, atomized society which undermines civic engagement 11 more than 18. Basic materials is all the less likely lower trust, and the wages led in trust. As groups to see this is not fair, difference that probable affects health and happiness, related income inequality, and social validation, anxiety, increased prejudice, education, to show superiority, inequality, how to popular problems, which also gives workers a voice into the middle class, results in greater rate of participation in this less minimum wage, least likely engaged, but they are not engaged. Now, thus the United States ought to require that workers receive a living wage. The plan makes corporations pay their fair share, which helps poverty, cost of living, and avoids economic damage they face in Chart 21. A living wage depends on the state of jobs with inflation 42%, maybe less than 50 jobs, geography, food, health, housing, transportation, clothing, personal care, low wage, wages, less 60%, employment, large poverty, bad poverty, close down, will negative impacts. The crash will increase the wage, pull back 1.2 million food secure, hungry costs must be billion, will increase the staff, the workers will have less employment, this will increase the greater freedom, allows decision to help move out of poverty, goes to find effective unemployment, the workers to leave second and third job, the negative impacts over a 10-year period, to find that 10% increase in minimum wage, result 36% increase in price, and less likely to be put in employment than the work to 80%, reduction in turnover, federal 15 million, increase the income of the lowest wage workers, government, reduce living wage, 2030 by 2030. No woman or child living adjusted insured, large increase not required in the future. Effective federal functions are key to mitigate vulnerabilities that culminate in extinction 21. We live in a vulnerable world, disease, weak financial accidents, tracks and system climate, vulnerability, non-stop systems which large dependency and limitation away from causing daily pandemic administrative devices to mitigate vulnerability later by strategy preparedness to disaster. The black terror tasking through an extra coordination system required to sustain life for nuclear attack, not the card of nuclear attacks. 22 states increased minimum wages this year, but those fail absent effective federal policy public code after what? 22 states and 40 states and counties competing minimum wage. This is an increase in 24 versus 25. The most 15 most moral fault based on racial hierarchy. Typically, workers to increase workers at 50% of workers to impact sustainable well-being and living jobs of food service workers called receive wages. In the southern states, and weekly represents half raising 3%, quarter 7, remaining 10. No job or profit loss, and negligible price increase at worst. These are the best studies. 11 and 23. Small businesses got contrast higher wages to make easier recruitment, training, turnover goes down. Workers more productive. New paper first over exam minimum wages on small business 15. Minimum without causing contrast data are 30 years 5 change everyone pays the same cost. Minimum response is a small price increase. Not enough to drive consumers means less turnover advertising training. Profits not harm the employment not only about high school workers, they the work less and study more reduced dropout rate. Extinction outweighs criminal 22. Extinction bad and moral theory. Revives makes sense in a political community in the humanities collective agent makes everyone's everyone's share, especially one of all humans go extinct. Good actions are thwarted. Mark the card thwarted. It would be implemented using local data. Data using input from third party ILO 24 living wage analytic. Oh, sorry, I forgot to add Loyola judging. I added your personal.
So yeah, no, the personal one is fine. I just never got the dog. Which is fine. It's fine. Like I just went off like the one that read from me last bit, but like.
Please learn what
Check your spam.
Yeah, I did.
Is everyone good for cross-section? Do you want
Yeah, do cross.
Okay.
See if I can get it to work with it.
What was the last card you cut out?
ILO was the analytic. I read the card before that.
ILO was the analytic. Okay, that's fine. I guess the Mavik evidence talks a lot about inequality globally.
Yes.
How does the affirmative solve through just doing a U.S. economic policy?
We don't. We solve domestic inequality. That's enough to solve the impacts of Mavak. Mavak evidence says diversionary wars are caused by U.S. China, U.S. NATO, U.S. Hamas, the U.S. Israel confrontations, etc. We don't need to solve everything in Mavak, especially since the other impacts of Mavak are big.
U.S. starts wars, empirics, question mark? Like, why?
U.S. has funneled billions of dollars aid to Ukraine. It has emboldened Israel, which has led a war with Hamas, impending with Iran, same with China. The U.S. is in very confrontational state with China. A collapse of interdependence and a collapse of United States fragility would, a collapse of U.S. resilience would cause diversionary wars like that.
I'm confused. You just didn't highlight the ones that were not U.S. Iran-Israel war, no-go proliferation.
Those all involve the U.S. Those all go nuclear because of the U.S. Iran doesn't
Wait, where is the warrant for any of those going nuclear?
It says U.S. Russia, U.S. NATO. NATO isn't the U.S. U.S. leads NATO. U.S. China, SES, etc. Those cannot exist without the U.S.
Wait, are any of these lines highlighted in the Mavik evidence?
Yes.
The word NATO is not highlighted in this card.
It is.
Okay, sure. The words nuclear, NATO, and Russia is
yes.
More. Fine, that's fine. I guess inequality causing elite capture. What is the problem with institutional trust right now?
People are distrustful of the government because they do not provide basic necessities for them. People reject it. For example, alt-right nationalists, they listen to them, and they listen to populists who say that we can do stuff better for you, but that entails exclusion.
Okay, I guess the Collier evidence talks about federal functions,
yes.
But you didn't read the part about administration. What about federal functions are uniquely good?
Well, the administration parts of federal functions, they need to centralize, and they need to get centralized data, and they need to
centralizing data for things like pandemics or climate
yes.
change. What does this have to do with the economy?
A few things. Firstly, the plan solves this through civic engagement and trust with the federal government. Secondly, it takes out states and federalism.
Wait, so civic trust solves for better federal functions?
We would say yes.
So if we resolve civic trust, never mind. I guess
you don't.
Sure. The no job or profit loss in the Lynbrook evidence talks about small businesses.
Yes.
How do higher wages affect corporations?
Obviously, corporations have enough money to pay their workers. The shock evidence says that 60% of workers are in large corporations and not in small businesses, and concludes that those corporations can easily pay their workers and do not want to get fined for wage theft, etc.
Okay, that's fine. The order is for the kids. doc is sent.
I'm good.
One sec. Good.
Anyone not ready?
I'm good.
Sorry?
I said I'm good.
Oh. Harrison's now polls proof Lewis 830. Harris has enjoyed a string of wins, slightly in 6 battleground states, tied in Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, leading by 2.66% of Hispanic voters prefer Harris. Harris leading by 4 points, up 7% among likely voters. Harris improved numbers among Black, Hispanic, and younger voters Thursday night at 538, 3.5 percentage points above Trump. And broad sweeping wage increase policies are perceived by voters as economically harmful and inflationary. True in Michigan, Boudreaux 823. Republican lawmakers are not the only ones raising concerns about minimum wage changes. The court's broad language could lead to 5 polls often for when and how to adjust over time with the approach at odds and ambiguities on how to interpret and implement accounting for inflation. A new survey of business owners argued James will spell economic disaster. New burden some directives will cause havoc and artificially spike costs. Many business owners and employees scared about the effects these measures will have to drop in optimism about both short-term and long-term prospects. And Trump 2.0 causes vertical escalatory arms race and causes nuclear war with Russia and China. Kimmel 24. Existential risk posed by nuclear weapons continues to grow a crucial factor in whether or not nuclear challenges erupt in full-scale crisis will be their use of election a major responsibility for any commander-in-chiefs to avoid events like a major nuclear war over Ukraine and Taiwan. Biden declaring use of nuclear weapons inadmissible. Trump engaged in threats of unleashing fire and fury. Effective arms control will be critical to avoid arms race after ICRT expires. Trump refused to agree to simple extension left Biden days to reach deal. Iranian leaders threatening to pull out of the NPT and can prevent nuclear development. Presidential leadership may be the most important factor that determines the risk of nuclear arms racing, proliferation, and war. Next off, community college enrollment is up at 10 U.S. Wismore 124. Community college is 118,000 students, the highest growth in any sector of education. 4 years off, smaller enrollment, and finally to the quarter from students continuing after stopping out. And higher entry level wages kills community college enrollment. And BER Digest 11.1. Increases were followed by enrollment reductions of over 4% for 4 years. Subset of students most likely to gain a credential that can meaningfully affect their income potential. And community colleges produce a STEM workforce. They produce the highest quantity of mid-level workers. Air negative massive bias against their importance and understanding of what STEM professions look like. Belfield and Brock at 1123. Community colleges deliver STEM education to students. Its contribution has been under-recognized. Community colleges preparing students for transfer in positions that require more than high school. Technical training predominates in community colleges. 29.8 million have a community college education. 22% working in STEM, earn 12 to 19% more than average. Generate $448 billion estimates on accounts to community college. And a strong and diverse STEM workforce is key to implementing CHIPS to solve economic decline and Great Power War. West 23. Improving STEM education, preserve innovation and edge investment would add $4.6 billion and create 185,000 jobs. Achievement requires implementation. The sector needs fabrication, assembly, distribution, and cybersecurity, workforce development, and management. The investment has a 6.7 multiplier effect on economic activity. Domestic worker skills are not available to address economic activity, and with foreign protection side risks of geopolitical conflict, economic competition, or military action is vital to boost domestic capabilities. Approaching onshore failure could harm security. We need STEM education to stay competitive internationally. We do not have sufficient native-born workers. We encourage Americans to go into STEM. We limit possibilities for almost 2/3 of the population, which limits innovation. And next off. The Federal Reserve is confident that inflation is slowing if wages don't go up. Rucover 24. The Fed is convinced that inflation is heading back to 2% target rate reductions, reduced by borrowing cost policy stress. Fed did not need a way officially to see several months of declining prices that inflation was fading towards. June was the 3rd straight month. We got the gradual reduction that we've been watching for. Increasing confidence fully tamed will reflect a long anticipated decline in rental housing costs. Job openings are sharply cooling, thereby reducing the need for business ramp up pay. Sharply higher wages can drive inflation. Companies respond by prices to cover labor costs. Job can cool considerably, not a source of broad inflationary pressure for the economy. And wage inflation increases spending and forces rate hikes. Summers 18. $15 an hour drew 4 million people into attracted 10 million existing workers, and a wage increase spending by 1/5 of the current total. Private sector costs by rise by $240 billion if the Fed saw budget expand, a tightening of the labor market, or upward pressure on wages. It would raise the interest rate significantly, but if they do, raising raise causes a recession. Overcorrection is the biggest economic risk. Carmen 1020. The past year in economic miracle, we didn't need a recession. Economies in terrific shape. Unemployment, wages rising, prices growth, and faster than pure countries' inflation, self-reinforcing. The Fed increased rates more expensive for consumers. Limits to how long wages can go up before paying an external shock far less threatening than an overcorrection. Overcorrection is the number one risk. The economy soft landing, but the Fed raises rates, driving plan off the runway, and it turns case Smith 24. 10% decrease in employment during a recession leads to an 11% decrease a decade after. The earnings losses for low-wage earners, and more reliant on social welfare. Economic shocks cause persistent gap in employment and exacerbate inequality. Next off, counterplan the United States ought to require that non-farm workers receive a living wage. Farms stable now despite challenges. Article 24. USDA ERS projected that farmers will continue to do well. Farmers predicted to earn equal to 98.7% of the average income. Come on the heels of most profitable years. Farmers expect to fare well despite challenges, and wage regulations hurt domestic farms and raise prices that jeopardizes the national food supply. Seeing 85. Farms will disappear. A number of farms in California has shrunk. Their prices of federal wage regulation that puts farmers at a competitive disadvantage for federal regulators. require farms to pay $20 an hour. Economic landscape for agriculture is even worse when farmers are mandated to pay wages. Local growers lose higher labor costs, translate to higher prices, raise divorce from market realities, and national food supplies being jeopardized. Domestically grown produce falls in reliance on imported food, grows with geopolitical instability, food supply crumbles, and American farms are especially key state point media. 22. With the Russian invasion, supply chain problems, inflation, and climate, the global hunger crisis reaching new levels. The instrumental role of American farms play in the U.S. economy in feeding the world, protect food systems, robbed from supply chain disruptions, and raising prices, and food insecurity triggers nuclear war. Crib 19. The dangers of a nuclear conflict increase to the highest ever. If humanity is wiped out, it will be with food under stress. Nothing will like chemical weapons be deployed in war, which had failure among certain drivers. And a nuclear conflict means a distinct possibility in South Asia and the Middle East regions are testing food and their nuclear progress multiplying panic regimes in Russia. USA would deploy atomic bombs to cold invasion by millions of refugees fleeing famine crises were flagged by the U.S. SCIS food insecurity are driving the use of nuclear weapons. And Schweitzer's wrong in context of farmers. White 23. Farmers have struggled to keep up climbing wages. 40 to 50% of a grower's expenses to be labor alone. Most industries can pass along costs to end consumers. With agriculture, that isn't the case. Foreign produce can undercut. They don't make an investment that year. That's not a sustainable path. Consolidation, fewer farm jobs, losing costs could push some growers out of the industry. A case. Colliers about pandemics or climate change is not about economics, and they didn't get to the administration solvency part, which means you can't grant them this. Mobbing is explicitly not about substantial inequality reduction in the U.S. It's about global inequality and wars between other countries with zero affiliation with the U.S. Mobbing predicts the recession will happen in the U.S. We insert green independently. The only justification for why wars are going to spark is 3 words at best, though. New one-year extrapolation is just by sandbagging. Global inequality has been declining. COVID was the worst scenario. We insert a chart of World Bank 23, and inequality has zero effect on war area. 15. Income inequality neither directly affects chauvinism. Countries with higher economic division exhibit a weaker relation between national identification and chauvinism, replacing the deterministic view that identification with one's in-group necessarily leads to antagonism towards outgroups with examination of social context, contrary to divisionary theory of national mobilization. Neither economic inequality nor diversity related to chauvinism, and inequality and poverty do not drive populism. Van Parij's 23, not poverty, not inequality, but insecurity is the root of upsurge in populism. Cultural insecurity plays an independent role. People feel their communities threatened by the arrival of people who do not share their practices. Populism is strongest in places where thriving market provides economic security, but where immigration boosts cultural insecurity. The feeling democratic governance bridled by creeds or constitutional restraints are unwilling to address them effectively. The temptation to embrace national solutions seems irresistible, and inequality is decreasing at a lightning pace globally. Mount 23. Despite economic crises, the overall story seems to be of progress for every shot of pandemic and inflation alter the economy. The basis for pessimism is look less convincing. Work to find themselves in much better market position. Reversal in fortunes even after inflation. The bottom quarter has seen a significant boost in income. The gap is narrowing with surprising speed over the 4 decades. The income of the poorest in the world rose very fast. The middle fast, and the richest sluggishly. And income inequality hasn't risen for over a decade. Publicly 22 data for between 1980 and 2020 found that income inequality peaked in 2012 and then stabilized. The increase in inequality we've observed since the 1990s is not inevitable, and inequality doesn't cause conflict. Must 16 does inequality lead to conflict results? Just have struggled to establish a firm relationship. However, it is minority groups who rebel, not the whole population. Studies are based on objective inequalities. People take action because of perceived injustices rather than measured statistical inequalities. Might not be aware.
Cross next.
Yeah.
Okay, election dissent says Trump 2.0 caused proliferation. Why didn't Trump 1.0 cause that?
He got close. He did a lot of things like trying to pull
You're
out
close.
money.
You got 4 years to do it. Why didn't he do it?
Right, the point is like 4 years is enough. The second term will spark it. He's planning to do a continuation of the policies he's done his first term.
Okay, wouldn't proliferation
actually
be slow though? Like when countries take time to get those nuclear weapons?
countries have nuclear weapons, Trump is willing to launch and cause war. And your logic said that Iran doesn't have nukes, but US draws in.
Perfect.
Our Kimball evidence, wait, to be clear, our Kimball evidence has a specific reason why exclusively Trump will cause drawn, not US invades wars generally.
But you haven't answered the question. Why is that faster than the app?
What do you mean? Because Trump, the election is in like 3 months.
Sure, okay.
And then he passes policies that are like explicitly like treaty organized, which is not like a time frame
He
issue.
says it loses Michigan. Why is Michigan key? They only have like 15 votes.
It's not about Michigan specifically. It's that when we did wage raises in Michigan, it was highly unpopular among voters due to a few things like ambiguity, economic disaster, business owners, and a few more.
This is about Michigan. Why is Michigan key?
It is indicative of the nation. Like we have not passed. Like
Michigan is indicative.
This is how like test cases work. Like you do something in a state, you see what happens. And
Michigan thinks the same as California.
I think like if you want, we can read evidence about California. I'm pretty sure that negates too.
It doesn't. The community college stuff. The link just says that. What's the link? People don't go to community college because they have more money to go to universities. Is that the link?
So when you raise the living wage, people who typically go to community colleges for higher wages don't need to anymore because they now have jobs that fall back on living wages.
Okay.
They take those jobs over community college enrollment.
Have you read Link Uniqueness that says that U.S. tech is declining and that community college is key to solve that?
Yes, that's our Belfield and Brock evidence. It's
The
very specific. The CHIPS evidence and the West evidence. The CHIPS Act essentially needs to create a bunch of semiconductor chips that are necessary for tech innovation for the U.S.
What evidence says that like Berkeley graduates can't solve that?
Berkeley graduate. It is not about high-level STEM professions. It is about mid-level managers at like smaller factories which need like an associate's degree to like run a semiconductor factory. It's not people who are like graduating from Berkeley and doing like research academic papers.
You don't think Berkeley?
I don't think Berkeley has enough people graduating to like run the entire semiconductor like CHIPS Act that like the U.S. needs. Like you can name all the Ivy Leagues.
What's the CHIPS Act?
The CHIPS Act essentially creates a ton of semiconductors and a ton of computer chips that are necessary for weapons in the military.
Okay, cool. The rate cuts they said, what evidence says that a rate hike is coming? That's distinct from no rate cuts. What evidence says a hike is coming?
What do you mean? The rate hike is not coming. That's your uniqueness.
Okay,
Inflation
what
is slowing,
evidence says
but
that the
cut
line would cause a
rates.
rate hike? The Federal Reserve does a complete 180 and
The Summers evidence.
Okay.
I'll read you a line, quote, if the Federal Reserve saw the budget deficit expanding
This is from
substantially,
2018.
a tightening of the labor market or upward pressure on wages,
The Federal
it would raise
Reserve
interest
this
rates.
month is going to cut rates. What makes 2018 evidence indicative of it not going to cut?
This is not like 2018 or 2023. This is not like what the Federal Reserve like thinks as an institution about wage hikes. Every time you hike wages, you force rate hikes as well.
There's 52 left. Everyone good for an order?
Is there a dog?
Yeah, there will be.
Yeah, I'm good.
It's going to be the case. The elections CISAT, the community colleges CISAT, the rates, the farms thing.
Okay. I'm good whenever.
Nice. Yeah. My email is down right now, so it might take me a while. I promise I'm not stealing crap.
Sorry, elections, community college.
Rates, farms.
Okay.
Yes. Everyone good?
I'm not gotten it yet, but it might just be me.
No,
Oh, I didn't get it either.
Yeah.
I actually-
Oh, I just got it.
okay, cool.
Me is actually not really helpful.
Everyone good?
Yes.
Okay. Drop trade fastest, the perception of inequality causes countries to decline trade to close independence. Dropped. Now, Mavak will only need solid evidence within the United States. Cross extradited US, NATO, Russia, China, SES, Iran, Hormuz, all involve the US to go nuclear. They say few words, it's enough. Global inequality down is long term within domestic industry. They dropped the wage decrease that has been decreasing in the US since the 1980s. They say yes, an internal income war. There are studies new, and takes every study account, hundreds of them, and says that yes, diversity war, yes, correlation, biggest cause. They say inequality when conceding inequality doesn't cause populism. The global is that it's declining globally. It's not declining globally. We only need to prove increase in domestically via wage declines. And yet, yes, it's been going down for decades because the United States has been wages have been declining, and like Trump proves. Now elections. The link sucks. It cites minimum wage studies that already exist in Michigan. So this plan will change existing sentiment. The plan propels Common Law 11.815. Polling units show majorities in the battleground states, Georgia and Pennsylvania back. The raising the minimum wage or the working people feel debts abandoned at a time of inequality. American people will like the government to do something well 60% on the living page to give a raise the minimum wage a living wage. Georgia determines the election site after 829. Georgia determines the winner. Georgia the best state until Biden trumps all. Edge Biden margin of error raised no path to win with 270 by Georgia. Pennsylvania decides the election and Harris is losing from it. Date 29. Harris chance of winning followed from 53% to 47%. Trump favorite. Harris tweet on August 14th. If Trump wins, Pennsylvania has a 92% chance to win. Pennsylvania week for Harris. Multiple polls prove standing 829 in Boston. Harris led Pennsylvania on a pen. Emerson showed that each received 48%. Pinpoint showed that Trump leading Harris. Walmart has voted gap open. Two latest polls show that Harris is losing Michigan. Dawkins today. The new poll shows that former president is ahead of Harris in Michigan. Found that 47% of Wisconsin will vote for Trump. The community college decided it's too slow. It requires the entire population to be educated before this happens. And it's inevitable recessions turns if people don't have savings to move into college to drop the half the country is implemented rate hikes this year. Post states all of their evidence and zero if the link sucks. Benfield says that colleges give STEM, not that the only ones that give STEM. Apparently there's enough right now. They also don't have uniqueness for STEM low now. And there's no war over semiconductors. Bremer 23, the risk of action against Taiwan low. Beijing always flexes. She is spending energy as a peacemaker full of educators, spoke of the common culture. Russia demonstrating predictable causing humiliating Taiwan with weapons. Risk of side of victory, China using against the lockdowns. She actually careful semiconductors China, which is the less risk. Martha Carter risk now. Rate hikes are off the table. There says that the Fed won't cut rates, not that they will do a complete 180 and hike them. That's the only internal miscalibration. Internal inflation is cooling, and the Fed decisions are rare. The rate hikes cause recession, and a worse than inflation, and worse for inflation. Economists 828. The price rises down with a recession, monetary tightening, quality inflation, all the electricity downturns. That expectation prices will not come by worsening inflation by pushing down inflation adjusted rates of interest growth fast because of immigration. Deficit counter rates and interest rates high while calibrated central ways to the targets will adapt in the 90s. Supply shocks are rare. Governments approved to rate lower screening transition plan having suggest that inflation is too late to cut and market soft strain 17 market monthly prices really accrue if they continue to inflation for 24 well above the Fed's target demand strong unemployment earnings wages grow faster asset explosion upward pressure rising equity price and falling rates and spreads ease when conditions markets are doing the Fed's job. Credit crunch is not interest rates cause recession the ones that spawn monetary cycles the same already 21 the Fed should not lower rates theories ignore the cycle chalk to one off despite recurring the recessions cause credit elevated by rates follow struggle and returns result of recession the past Fed risk rate during a crisis too late to avert crunch the yield predicts Fed policy rather than their business investors lock in long-term rates expectations that Fed will ease once the crisis snaps will false positive credit conditional losing lax are myth Martha Carter admit that now farms do counterplan to must be text functions most objective measure is the most objective counterplan text and can't solve trust it's seen as incoherent pigs don't solve trust people who feel excluded by the government and basic policies are key including consistent carve-outs for entire industries everyone thinks that the app is more of the same exclusionary policy the plan bolsters access sustainability down the wall 24 what farmers do is irreplaceable producing what the nation's most reliable bring support for the international competition for future challenges no come through economy change food production is critical the industry is taking advantage of millions of the production farm workers the belief that increasing wages will lead us in costs of business sector and wages go by 47% for people will go up to 1.76 wages theoretically that will cost corporations pay their living wage at an equitable cost mark the card an equitable cost the plan is best for the long-term solution survival to 24 farm workers are the economy failure to fairly compensate for creative cars farmers that can fairly provide issue a visa provides the conflict mandate not a long-term solution increasing wages is most sustainable agricultural workers must be probably compensated to be competitive with us as other sectors.
Okay, great. I'll take prep. Independent reasons to affirm.
Nope.
Did you read Pick's back?
Nope.
Okay, function and text why?
Objectivity, you look at the text and the counterplan text, there's no way to determine what the function is absent text. Also counterplan writing, arbitrariness, fairness.
The econ just said, where'd you cut this Yardeni card?
Lags are mid.
Huh?
I'm gonna cut it at lags are mid over here.
Lags are what?
Lags are mid.
What's the last word? It's like
Are mid.
mid? Oh, mid. Oh, gotcha. STEM disad, the STEM ed, the econ disad, the elections disad, and then the farmer's pick.
Or again.
So the STEM ed disad, the econ disad, the elections disad, the farmer's pick gives. Let me know if everyone's good. Cool. STEM education will concede it's way too slow and inevitable as the recession turns in, which means it doesn't sort of matter. Plus, we'll concede no link that colleges are going to be able to resolve everything, which means they get no offense. The econ disad rate hikes will concede that it's about credit crunches and lack of loaning, not about interest rates, which means they don't get the straight turn. The elections disad, the elections disad, every single argument, every single state that they listed, like Georgia and Pennsylvania, is post-dated by our poll, which says that Harris is winning those states anyways. Their evidence might be post-dated by one day, but it doesn't matter because our evidence was about multiple different polls between things like Newsweek 538 and a bunch of other polls from Fox that all showed that in these battleground states, when we did voter polling, not polling about what people thought about Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump through sort of voluntary polling, it's significantly better and proves that there's risk of offense on the uniqueness. Independently, we'll concede that there's robust models that shows that independently will answer the link as well. The plan for polling Kamala doesn't make sense. The Lemon evidence just is about an interview with Bernie Sanders about how Kamala Harris can win, but doesn't show any implication about why Kamala Harris is uniquely going to be specific, is uniquely going to win just because Bernie Sanders thinks that Kamala Harris is going to win based on polls that were unsighted and don't have any statistical analysis and were run by uncredible sources. Independently, you can, the counterplan I'm going for solves for both, but if you judge the counterplan, you can't vote on the election straight turn if he goes for it. The farmer's pick. It solves 100% of the affirmative because it only excludes farmers. Well, it only excludes farmers, which means we're still able to resolve institutional inequality. It puts them in a double bind. Either A, global inequality is going to be so bad that they can't resolve it with just U.S. policies, or just U.S. policies are enough and you don't need farm workers. There's no middle line, and they have to be very, very clear about why exclusively excluding only farm workers is going to be bad for the economy and bad for inequality writ large across the country. Independently recognize that a lot of migrant workers are H-2A visas, which aren't even contributing specifically to U.S. economies, but rather to economies like such stuff in Mexico, which means all of their arguments about why cartels, drug terror, etc. will cause things like economic recession in places like Mexico, in which these workers are sending money back there and not contributing to consumer spending, means that they cannot solve their affirmative and turns it, the line by line, the perms of the counterplan doesn't make sense. They just said the words text and function. If they said everything that they actually did when asked in flex prep, then amazing, but they obviously said like probably 3 words at best. Independently, counterplans, this is a pick where these counterplans can only need to compete off a function. It's the only non-arbitrary source of competition that is necessary. Textual competition is dumb and justifies things like word scramble words, which makes it impossible for us to debate because they can add arbitrary words like and should and justifies the plain text, arbitrarily adding sort of conjunctives that allow them to make scramble forms, which is uniquely way worse. The next thing, they can't solve trust. Doesn't matter. They conceded on the case page that trust in populace, the populist sentiment is predicated on other things, which means this is not a solvency. That's it. I'll get to that on the case page. The Demoy evidence, their evidence about wage theft, not about paying farmers too little, which means the living wage won't serve regardless. I low-key forgot to send the doc. I'll send it after this, okay? Independently, wage theft is an alt cause to all of their arguments for the solvency deficit, which non-uniques and means that any risk of offense with the affirmative is sufficient. Fairson, you're already 21. Immigrants most victimized by employers are failing to pay them fairly, not unusual to face employer intimidation and wage theft. Problems include agriculture incentives for wage theft began with price per garment that manufacturers received from retailers that was only 73% of the price needed to support paying workers even minimum required pay. Reviews of claims for unpaid wages can take years. State officials admit hearings and appeals that can spill into courts, and some businesses just don't pay up, which means it's totally non-unique. It means that even if you raise a living wage for farm workers, it wouldn't be able to resolve anything, which means marginal amount of neg offense is way better than their evidence. Their evidence only says wage theft is bad. It has nothing to do with living wage, and you can discount it off the flow independently. Even if you do by living wage, minimum wage hikes drastically trade off when employment labor. Smith, 22, a $1 increase decreases the likelihood of employment for an individual farm worker by about 1 percentage point, and Michigan further proves White, 23, wages for migrant farm workers are expected to jump, putting a pinch on Michigan growers. Farmers are struggling to keep up with climbing wages. They're able to 40 to 50% of a grower's expenses can be labor alone. And remember that if you can extend the turns case analysis, most industries cannot pass their costs on to end consumers, so they have to take the blow, which means farmers are not sort of able to do this in the first place. Independently, they forgot to look at small farms, which proves by Georgia Lynn Hayes, no day. If farmers know that paying higher labor costs is not expensive, being recouped by raising prices off to get creative to make ends meet. Small farms will resort to downsizing their operations. Farms cannot be sustainable if they don't have the opportunity to manage input costs. The increase will lead to modernization, limiting costs, or reduce labor hours. In Georgia, there's huge opposition. Farmers are deeply concerned about business growers having to pay into dip into personal savings. Increasing wages will be another huge hit with them. It also answers the next stuff about the Cervantes evidence talking about H2A link. This H2A does not make sense. We did not read a link about H2A. It was about exclusive farm workers, including native people native to, or people who live in America and are citizens are still sort of farm workers, which means there's some risk of offense at least for them. But independently, it just says that H-2A visa is a band-aid program that didn't work. Fantastic, that's exactly why we're running it. But independently, if you do buy the H-2A program that didn't work, the H-2A program is a program in which 70% of farm workers are under, and which they are Mexican citizens, but they come over to temporarily work for 3 years in the U.S. This means that raising a living wage does not resolve anything because they're sending money back to Mexico, and it doesn't increase things like consumer spending or revitalize the economy. But increasing costs for farmers devastates the ability to grow, which directs rural economies and turns everything. This counterplan should solve 100% of the affirmative. They have to draw a very, very narrow line that they just cannot do, and they have to explain why specifically farm workers will not work, and their trust solvency deficit does not have an impact. The app case. The biggest issue in the affirmative case is one, remember they drop trust, but second, their answer about inequality is going down for decades because wages are declining. Doesn't make sense. Wages have been declining since the 1980, but stopped in 2012. Our evidence is very specific that it's been a decade since inequality has been there in the U.S. over time, which means there's no impact. It puts them in a double line. Either A, you can outweigh the dissent on the counterplan, even if you judge it on time frame, because it happens way, way faster because the food collapses globally, which causes all these economic shocks and inequality arguments of why the U.S. would go to war in the first place, which turns all of their arguments, or B, the inequality time frame is going to take so long that institutional resilience doesn't end up mattering in the first place. The trade link does not make sense because the trade link depends on inequality, and global inequality and interdependence. We'll flip this. All of our evidence about global inequality not decreasing, not just U.S. inequality decreasing, especially coupled with that Mavic evidence is only specific to global inequality causing things like trade wars, etc., is the reason why trade wars will never happen in the first place, because it's about global inequality. They don't have solvency if inequality has been stacked.
Send the cars, please.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
Pause for
The third card was actually written in the one in C. I just put it in there for my reference.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, guys. Wait, did you send it?
Yeah, I just left it.
Okay, thanks. Wait, I didn't get it. Did you? Oh, wait.
Yeah, you can wait until it pops up. That's fine. That's my bad.
Okay. Good?
Sorry. The order again?
Case dissent.
Which one?
Well, the act dissent.
Oh.
Yeah, like the mom's thing. Act dissent, yeah. Everyone good? It's some offense versus none at all. You know that the tuner gets you, impact calculations, explains it impacts you. They just said the words rural economy, nor implicated that Y that turns trade, etc., etc., etc. And we win some risk of offense on trust. We win the debate. The trust is a key internal link to both impacts of trade and elite capture. Both perceptual and quick elite capture is necessary to solve every existential risk dropped in both species, and trade is necessary. You know, the one who did the impact comparison on trade because I said the words. The moment countries hear the plan, they will think that the United States is going. They think the United States is going to decrease inequality and stop trade wars. The impact is only domestic, so we do not need to win global impacts, and they certainly cannot solve because they certainly cannot solve. Time about ways. Other ways, the biggest impact would be heat death of the sun, and you can only die once. Now, along the case page, they say wages are declining. This is about domestic wage increases, and we said the words that only the long-term wages impacts. When you see B-bins, and every inequality card says this, when inequality says this, they've been declining since the 80s, and the election of Trump proves that it's enough an incoherence for the government to be unequal and to see the government as something not to be trusted. The trade internal link literally says that trust is necessary because trust in the government determines whether or not the big businesses or the big bankers determine the economy, which is why they lead to Trump, which leads to the trade wars. That's an Oppenheimer collapses to independence. Every single hotspot, which should outweigh the one-term impact. Now, trust. Choi says now trust. Even if you don't think this directly applies, Choi says that ambitious policies that directly impacts all is necessary to solve government coherence, and the internal link to trade is government coherence, which is the internal link. They just dropped this argument and they say it's not global. We only do win domestic trade because our arguments about U.S. inflicted trade wars to China that collapses all of trade. That was the Oppenheimer evidence. The risk is too big to vote on the act. Is said. Now the PIC does not solve. Even if the trust impact does not have an impact, they make it have an impact. No, they make it have an impact. They go a complete 180. It's incoherence. Think about it like this: a living wage is a universal policy. They've called a singular sector for a living wage. That's obviously seen as U.S. incoherence. Why farm workers exactly? And specifically, since the living wage, as per shock evidence, is the universal policy that applies to all. It's seen as government incoherence. It's seen as big bankers controlling the economy or the direction of the government. And farm workers are obviously going to protest about this, etc. Since it's seen as U.S. incoherence. The coherence is the necessary internal link to the trade impacts. Now they say turns case false. They just say turns. And they just explain the impact of their rural economy impact, but nothing else. They didn't even explain it. They just said farmers won't be able to do this. Well, no, with no increase. Now they say the wage theft does not apply to this at all because it's about government incoherence, not solving our impact. Additionally, I'm going to the Cervantes evidence. It takes out the entire dissent. They dropped the part of Cervantes where it says that farm workers are not stable. The farming industry is not stable. Farm workers are the economy. They are undercompensated, and they cannot be. And even if the act makes it a little bit worse, it's unsustainable. It's going to fall apart eventually because of the lack of pay, lack of growth, lack of industry, etc. And nothing about the counterplan nor the status quo can solve that. They forgot to extend uniqueness, and they forgot to explain the impact.
Okay, we're in.
Lynbrook versus Brophy is in.
I don't know what it is.
Anybody see where he went?
Oh, Gordon. You want to get him? He's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're good.
Sorry, I forgot.
No, you're good. We got things there.
He's coming a second.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Cool. Alright, congratulations to debaters for making it to Octa Finals in the mid round of the 2024 Loyola Tournament. This is an excellent debate. You should be proud of yourselves. Decision is a 2-1 for the negative from Brophy. I'll go first because I sat again.